All right, I'm working on the temperature blanket. I've knit it all the way up to the almost end of January. We're going to finish out January and then I'm going to start on February. So this is what the blanket looks like so far in color wise. Every day is a surprise. So let's get started on the daily knitting of the temperature blanket, doing 2 rows per day. Let's get started. I am now knitting for January the 28th on my daily knitting, just finishing out January. So the temperature is 43 Fahrenheit, and we're gonna add on varsity blue. I'm adding on varsity blue, and I'm just gonna knit all the way across and then all the way back, 2 rows per day. And we're using varsity blue for January the 28th. Just tie that once and then we'll come back and knot it. Continue knitting. I'm nearing the end of my first row for January the 28th. Just going to finish this up. And then I'm going to knit all the way across and we'll start on our next day. Just finishing up the second row for January the 28th. And then I'm going to continue on to January the 29th. And I want to make sure my knot is secure at the ends. I'm starting on January the 29th. My temperature is 42. So we're going to continue knitting in varsity blue. We're going to knit 1 row and then we're going to knit a second row. So we're going to go ahead and start knitting in varsity blue for January the 29th. Just keep knitting all the way across and all the way back. I'm finishing up January the 29th, row 1 in the varsity blue. And now I'm going to knit all the way back for the second row and continue to knit all the way to the end, and then it will be on the next day. Just knit all the way across. All right, so I'm coming to the end. I'm just knitting to the end for January the 29th, and it was 42 Fahrenheit. And this is my second row. So I will be starting another row for the next day. I'm starting the first row for January the 30th, and the temperature was 40 Fahrenheit. This is also varsity blue. So I'm knitting another 2 rows in varsity blue. So knit all the way across and all the way back for January the 30th. I'm just finishing up January the 30th for row 1 using the varsity blue. And I'm just going to go ahead and knit the second row all the way across for January the 30th. And then we'll move on to our next day. I'm knitting my second row for January the 30th, and I'm just going to knit all the way across. And then I will start my new day. January the 30th, we are finishing off the second row, and then I'm going to go ahead and start the next day. I'm on January the 31st. It was 41 Fahrenheit. I'm continuing on in varsity blue. So just knit all the way across and all the way back in varsity blue for January 31st. Just go ahead and knit all the way across. I'm finishing up row 1 for January the 31st in varsity blue. And I'm just going to go ahead and knit all the way back and then move on to my next day. Just continue on knitting in varsity blue all the way across. I'm near the end of my second row for January 31st. The temperature was 41 Fahrenheit. And now I'm going to start on my next day. So we just finished out January the 31st. All right, so we finally finished out January. For the month of January, knitting the temperature blanket. Now we're going to move on to February. Like, subscribe, and happy knitting, everyone.